few hours left for the big war, and in this video, we're gonna give you guys some tips to prepare for that. Greetings, Commanders. My name is Eagle, and we're back again with another Kiss of War video. And in this video, we have collected all the knowledge that we have about combat experience in these types of games and in Kiss of War specifically. And we're going to share with you guys some tips for the different phases of the war. The first phase will be the preparation phase. The second phase will be actually the battle phase. And the last phase will be the after war phase. We're going to give you guys a series of tips and guides that will help you prepare for the war that will start in a couple of hours. So this video is going to be probably about 3 hours before the war starts. So you'll have some time to watch it and share it with your guildmates so that you would know the best tips in order to participate with this war. Now, for the first phase, which is war preparation, pre-war phase, how do you best prepare for a war before it happens? Now, the first things first that you have to know is that it is a must that you build or preset up your marches, because in the war you really don't have that much time or flexibility, such as, for example, in raiders you can have a little bit more time. But when it comes to the real war, the enemy can do unexpected and can be unexpected movements and can be unpredictable. Therefore, you would have to react fast, and in order to do so, you would need to set or preset up your marches. And the way you can do that is basically, if we send out these two marches back, I'll show you how I preset my marches, and then you can do the same to your own officer combinations. You can do that by simply clicking in camp over here. We'd go to these marches, like for example, I have 5 marches that I can put out. You would preset a march. So for example, if we have this one over here, this is my main march. I'm running Linda with Catherine. So let's say I want to alternate this march, just simply because, for example, I activated a march capacity boost or whatnot. You can simply alternate it like that, and you have to click the save button over here. This way, this march is saved for the battle, and once you need it, you can only click one, and that march is ready to go out to battle. And you would do the same for the rest of the marches over here. I have them all set up before, but I have the officers outside, so this is why they're not showing up right now. But once you have all these marches set up, you will be able to put out different marches to the battlefield. And one thing that I want to say about this is that you should have some sort of variety of marches. This way, like for example, the first like 1 and 4 are my tank marches, are my main tank marches that I'm using right now in the battle. 2 would be my main anti-tank march, and 3 would be my main infantry march. 5 would be a mixed march if we had to like do a rally, or if I had to, for example, reinforce someone with a mixed march of troops. And the officers won't really matter in this march, because usually either if you're doing a rally, you need rally officers, or if you're reinforcing someone, it doesn't really matter what officers you're sending there. What matters is the amount of troops you're reinforcing with. Therefore, I'm using also rally officers because they increase the capacity of marches. So this is the first thing that you need to do. Now, for the second thing is basically activating the right combat boosts for the war. And this has two ends. The first thing, if you are on the offensive side, what you need to be doing is activating an HCM missile. My personal recommendation is to activate the 10% one, because that actually does make a huge difference when you're fighting with 5 marches and you're like a big guy in your guild. But if you don't have the gold, or you don't want to spend the gold, then simply you can activate a 24-hour or a 12-hour 5% attack boost, and that would do the job as well. Now, if you are, however, on the defensive side, I would highly recommend activating a defense boost, because it helps a little bit more than the combat boost if you are trying to be on the defensive side as well. What you can also do is apply an EMP generator or a fake army if the battle is still not heating up, but it's building towards it. So this way you would sort of deceive the enemies of you having, like, they wouldn't know how many troops they would like you have, and therefore they wouldn't know how many players they should focus you at the same time. So this way you can actually play them some mind games with the enemies if the battle is still not heating up. But if you are already fighting, these two will be extremely useless. So highly recommended only applying HTM missiles if you are on the offense, and if you are in the defense, applying a defense boost would be amazing as well. Now, of course, both cases, especially the one in the offense, and if you're having field fights as well, march capacity is extremely recommended, especially if you have like your marches can actually hold more troops, or you have more troops to actually be held in your marches. This way, I would go for the 25% or the 50%, depending on how many extra troops you have. So if you have so many extra troops that your marches, like if you have 1 million troops that are out there and 1 million troops are in your base, I would activate the 50% because this way you would be much more efficient and effective in the battlefield. But if you don't have that many troops or that many extra troops, I would go for the 25% only and activate that as well. You can also run the fight without these, but it's highly recommended to do so because this way you would be more effective and it will inflict less damage on you, and you would inflict more damage on the enemies, and overall much better performance in the battlefield. Now, the third thing that is very important also is actually selecting the right base decoration. Now, some players actually ignore that, but this actually is huge factor, especially in the battlefield. This is because of the fact that selecting the right one over here. So if you go to my decorations, you can use, by the way, this one. They changed sort of the system. I don't know why they changed it like that. It's kind of weird right now, but however, like I think if you use it right now, it's unlocked, probably something like that. It's kind of weird, but I think that makes much more sense because right now you can use it like immediately. Which is also pretty cool. Now, the thing about the base decoration over here is that you have to ensure that you're getting the maximum amount of boosts that you can get globally. Of course, if you don't have these unlocked yet, make sure that you have them unlocked after the update, because this way you would make sure that the global bonuses are being effective as well. Now, my personal, in my personal recommendation or whatever I'm using right now, I'm using 2 tank marches and 1 mixed march, meaning that I'm very highly invested on tanks. Therefore, I'm using Warm Hearts for the 7% tank health. I'm also, if we use it right now, just to make sure that it's activated, I'm also have this one over here, which gives me a global bonus of 3% tank attack, which is always really good. I know this damages a bit my tank destroyer defense by 5%, but that's completely fine. Because I'm using a Jessica over there, which will increase the defense by a huge amount. So this is kind of neglected, especially adding to the fact that I have a global bonus of 3% over here. So it's only decreased by 2%, which is a very low amount compared to that. Global bonuses are extremely important, and you have to always know how to use these at best. I also have a 3% infantry health from the global bonus over here. So this way I have a lot of bonuses from base decorations, and I'm using the one that gives me the highest boost for the most used unit type in my arsenal. Now, also a very important thing to notice as well is the officer wardrobe over here. You have a lot of officer skins that are extremely important. Some of them have a battlefield, like for example, if we look over here, you have the battle buff and you have the deployment buff. Both of these are extremely important, and you have to know when to use each one of those. So for example, if I had this skin, or Catherine, which I don't have, but if I had this skin, this is a global bonus, and I would never use her in combat. I would always use the battle buff and the deploy buff. This is because simply this bonus I'm already getting without wearing that specific outfit, but these I'm only getting when I'm actually deploying that outfit and I'm actually in battle. So it is very important to know which skins that you're using for each officer, and depending on that, you would know exactly how to set up your arsenal as well. Now, without further ado, this was it for the war preparation. Let's go ahead to the real action and see what tips we have for you guys over there. The battle phase has started. The first thing that you need to do is position your base and your troops in the battle area. So in our example over here, say that we are going to be attacking 27 right now, okay? So where would I position my base and where would I position my troops? Now, there are multiple strategies for this. We're not going to exactly tell you what strategy this is that we're using, but we're going to give you just an example of what we could be using. So for example, let's say the map is divided in half, and this is our half and this is their half. So Once we occupy the isolation barrier level 1, I would teleport my base somewhere in this area so that it's actually still protected, right? Like I don't want to go too crazy and teleport over here, because this way I would be in enemy territory and it kind of could go south from there. So you would teleport your base in this area and start expanding over here in this area. Now, if the enemy teleports to your area, you can always fight them as well. But teleporting your base is very important, and making sure that your base is close to your troops is also very important as well. Like, you don't want to be sending your troops all the way across the battlefield, and then this way they would have access to your troops wherever they are, and you have nowhere to hide them. So you have to always make sure that your troops are like about 30 seconds to 1 minute away from your base in terms of march time, because this way you can actually protect your troops and like retreat them back in order to heal them without having to lose all your troops and having to walk so much like a far distance in order to reach your base or any friendly base for the sake of that. Now, once you find your ideal positioning for your base, obviously you have to do this as clusters. You cannot just teleport your base on your own and expect not to be attacked. So if you have clusters of bases teleported into like next to each other, you would know that you are sort of protected, because enemies cannot really attack a cluster of bases. Otherwise, they would lose a lot of troops. So this is very important as well to do as a guild or as a server as a whole. The more bases that are teleported in the same area, the better your chances of winning the fight will be. Now, the second point is that it has to be adaptive also to enemy strategies. Now, for example, say that the enemy is immediately teleported to your area over here. Now, you have to also adapt to that strategy as well. You have to make sure that you are right now playing with the defensive rather than the offensive, and therefore you would have to know all the strategies how to play on a defensive side rather than the offensive side, because what you need to be doing in that case is actually reinforcing your allies rather than rallying the enemies. Now, my recommendation to you is not to rally any bases. Always being on the defensive side has more advantages on being on the offensive side, simply because if somebody is rallying your base, you will not be losing any troops, rather than your troops will be seriously wounded and going to the garages. Now, if you have enough capacity in your garages, then that means that the enemy will be losing all their troops, while on the other hand, you have only you're losing resources, because the only thing that you're losing over there is the time that you need to heal them and the resources that are required to do so. So this is very important to know that if you are on the defensive, do not push to be on the offensive. Just enjoy that you are on the defensive right now and that you have like an advantage over the enemy, because they're losing troops and you're not losing troops. Of course, going through that, I would have to always make sure that to mention that you have to keep an eye on your garage capacity and your resources as well. Now, fighting over here, if you're fighting in the field, or if you're getting rallied, or if you're getting on the defensive or even the offensive, it's very important to always take a look at your garages and see what capacity you have reached, because if you go over the capacity, all the troops that are seriously wounded in the battlefield will be immediately lost instead. Therefore, it is extremely important for you guys to know that you have to always check your garage capacity and always check your resources as well, for that sake, so that you would know that, hey, I have like 300k troops in my capacity. Can I actually heal those? Do I have the resources and capabilities to heal those troops or not? Because if you don't, then you have to retreat, and you would basically have to reset later on until you have the resources in order to heal those. So it's very important to keep an eye on your current troops and your resources for that sake. Now, another thing that is very important, especially in field fights, countering or smart countering your enemy marches can win the fight. Even if you are lower in terms of power, it is still extremely important to hit the marches that your marches actually counter. So for example, if you see an Angelica march that is running full infantry or a huge amount of infantry on the battlefield, immediately focus all your tank marches on that specific march, because this way, not only you're going to be doing a pincer attack, which is surrounding that march, you're also going to be doing extra damage for the troop advantage, which is tanks over infantry, which tanks over like infantry has, especially if you have an extremely high trained officers. This way you would be dealing more damage to that specific march, and you would be able to take out those specific small marches from the battlefield without having to worry about like the other marches that are going on, or the huge fight that's going on. So you have to be extremely attentive to those marches and what march has which like combination, and immediately switch between those marches on the battlefield, because that would give you a huge advantage as well. Now, another thing that is about smart countering, or it's not about countering, it's basically about how to, like, when to fight in terms of field fights. It's highly recommended that if one of your marches reaches about 50%, 50 to 60% of its health, that you bring that march back to the base and then out to the field again. Now, why do I say so? Because a lot of the time, if you look at the battle reports over here, so if you look, for example, at any battle report, you would see that there are wounded troops. Now, those wounded troops can be a huge percentage of the amount of troops that are lost in the fight. Now, those wounded troops, however, will not go to the garage, but when you return your march to the base, they will immediately be healed without any cost. Therefore, in order to heal your troops, and in order for your marches to be more effective and efficient in the battlefield, you have to make sure that once a march reaches 50%, return it to the base and then out again to the battlefield. This way you would enhance your overall performance in the fight. And simply fighting with a march that is at 50% capacity will not even deal more damage. You will even be losing more troops, and you really don't want that situation to happen to you on the battlefield. So always make sure you're returning your marches and then go like putting them out to the battlefield again once they reach a certain amount of HP. Now, another tip that I wanted to talk about, which is also very important, is when to retreat your whole base. Like, when do you know that, hey, we are losing the fight, let's get back, heal up, regroup, and then go back again? Because that is very important. You don't want to reach the state of you losing troops in the battle, especially if it's like the first encounter with another server. Because like this fight over here is the first encounter with another server. Also, like if like these servers over here, when they fight, this area is just the first area that you're going to be fighting about. You're going to be fighting about level 5 cities. You're going to be fighting about level 6 cities, and also laboratories. So there are a lot of objectives, and that's not all. When the second zone opens, you'll be fighting over the Pentagon, which is basically the biggest prize over here. So you have to know when to conserve your resources and troops, and in order to fight another day. Like, this is not the like the actual war of all wars. This is only the first war of multiple wars that you'll be fighting, and you need to know how to like when to retreat and when to regroup again and fight back. So of course, in the fight you will have the Warmonger effect. Now, the Warmonger effect, what it does is that it does not allow you to shield up. So shielding up, if you are fighting or actively fighting, you will not be able to shield up, and therefore the only way to actually go back is to teleport to the safe zone. Now, teleporting to the safe zone, why do I consider this as a safe zone? Because it's only opened in one direction now. So let's say you lost the fight, the enemies cannot follow you to this zone and capture the isolation level 1s and go inside, because simply at this point in the game, it is still this zone over here is still a safe zone. So do not worry about that. The only thing that you should be worrying about is that once you reach that point where you should go back to the safe zone, it is extremely important to know that you have an activated or like couple of teleports that will allow you to teleport back to this zone as well. Now, it is also important because right now at this like the governor skill that they have added, which I have, which we'll leave to another video, but I think it's also like worth mentioning right now, because if that ability was activated on your base, then you have to make sure that you have enough allies around you to reinforce you and like basically take out or swarm the rallies that will be trying to hit you at that point, because they have like a 15-minute time or 10-minute time where they can actually hit your base without having any protection if you are in a Warmonger position. If you are not in a Warmonger position, you can simply shield up, and that would solve the problem because you cannot teleport. So the only way to like take out, like basically get away from that position is to shield up. This is why I always say being on the defensive is always better than the offensive, because if you're being attacked, then the Warmonger effect is not really activated, so you can whenever shield up, and all the troops that are attacking you will just disappear, and basically you're good to go. But being in a Warmonger effect, you have to fight carefully. Otherwise, you will lose a lot of troops, and you don't want that happening in any fight. Now, another thing that I wanted to talk about is knowing your capacity and capabilities and knowing what enemies you can actually take out. You will see a lot of tier 5 players in the field. And if you are a tier 4 or even a tier 3 player, which I highly doubt, but let's say if you are a tier 4 player, the advantage that tier 5s have over tier 4 is significantly high, especially if the tier 4 is like a low tier 4 player, meaning that they don't have enough military research. Like that could be devastating. Like the damages that tier 5 can deal to a tier 4 player is devastating. So always make sure that you're either in a really good position versus that tier 5. Like if you have like 3 different marches that counter that one tier 5 march, then that is an okay situation. But if like it's equal in terms of marches, like if they have 2 marches and you have 2 marches, there's no way you're gonna win that battle. So it's way more effective for you to actually retreat, regroup with your allies, and then attack with the same capacity. Like you have to attack in numbers, and you cannot really go solo versus a tier 5 player. It's just ridiculous. Therefore, you have to know how much your capabilities are and what you can actually take out, like what marches can you actually take out from the enemy, because once you know that, you would significantly reduce the amount of troops that you will lose in the fight, and also fight much smarter than just going out in the field and trying to get as many kills as you can, because this way you would be reserving resources so that you can fight another time and another day. So mainly that was basically it for the battlefield. Basically that was all the tips that I wanted to give in the battlefield. If you guys have any more tips like during the fight, what you should do during the fight, please make sure to share them as well in the comments below. That would be absolutely lovely. And for now, let's go to the third section, which is after the fight. Now, after the battle phase, like once the battle is over, how do you know the battle is over? In first place, basically, you would know that either the enemies have retreated, or basically the fight didn't go on for like an hour or so. So you would know that, hey, basically that's the fight is over. Or if you have like agreed on some sort of like peace, like period or a truce or whatever. So a lot of strategies and diplomacy happened back then. But once you know that the battle is over, there are a lot of things that you have to do in order to rebuild and prepare for the next one, because as we said before, there are a lot of battles that are going to happen over these objectives over here, and you need to be prepared for every single one of them. And in order to do so, you have to do these tips right now. So first things first, you have to make sure that your troops and your base are actually in a safe location. In order to do so, you have to make sure that your base is either shielded or is located in the safe zone. So if, let's say you are just for example over here, and you need to teleport back to the safe zone, unless you know that there are a lot of troops or a lot of bases that are near you, or if you're actually shielded up. If you're AFK, enemies can attack at any second, and they can zero your base while you have no clue what happened. So it is important for you to either shield up if you are outside the safe zone, or teleport back to the safe zone, and then teleport like back over to the war if there's another war going on. Now this is extremely important because you don't want to get zeroed. It's extremely hard to build your troops back, and it can be easily avoided by doing the following. Now, also, never leave your troops in the battlefield. Whatever happens, immediately send your troops back to your base, because your troops in your base are way more protected than when they are in the battlefield. So that is extremely important, especially whenever the battle happens. I don't know if you're trying to flex or whatever you're trying to do, but just put your troops in the base. That is way safer than having them on the battlefield. And also, if you are reinforcing one of your allies, you have to make sure that these troops or these marches are returned also to your base, because you don't know if that ally goes AFK and you go AFK and then they zero him, and that meaning that all the troops that you have over there will be basically lost as well, especially if you have a garages full. So you don't want that happening too. So if someone else makes mistakes, you don't want your troops to be the collateral damage out of that mistake as well. You have to also make sure that you are gathering as much resources in the peacetime as possible, because this is the only way that you can rebuild your troops and heal the ones or repair the ones that are in your garages, and then prepare for the next war, because resources is the most important and valuable asset in this game over here. Troops are extremely nice, but if you don't have resources, then that means you can't really fight, because you cannot afford to lose troops over your garage's capacity, because losing troops is the worst thing that can happen in this game. So if you don't have resources to heal your troops, then basically you're out of the fight, and that is like the worst thing that could happen to you. So always make sure that you have enough resources to heal your troops, and by doing so, you have to always make sure that you're gathering in the peace times, so that you can get the maximum amount when the war comes. Now, last thing, some of your guild members will be, let's say they don't have enough resources in order to fight, or they are free to play or low spender tier. They fought a really good war, but right now it's very hard to rebuild. So these guys, you can help them out a lot if you have a farm account. So what you can do is put your troops out of your farm account, and they can take resources from your farm account in order to heal their troops as well. So if you're a big player, or even if you have a farm account and you want to share some resources, make sure you do so with your guild mates, so that everyone in your guild is ready for the next war, and therefore you guys will be maximum ready, basically, to fight again anytime soon. Now, these are all the tips that I wanted to give you guys. If you have any more tips for the community or anyone else, please make sure you leave them in the comments below, so that everyone else can learn from your tips and prepare best for this war. Lastly, I would like to thank you so much for watching. If you have learned anything new, or if you like the video, make sure you like the video down there. It helps a lot. And also subscribe to the channel if you are not subscribed yet. Thank you so much for watching, and we will definitely see you on the next one. As always, Eagle.